also known as Douluo. A group of full-level children, Tang Ge traveled through the world of Tang Sect and became the sect leader after many years. Then he traveled with Tang Sect disciples to the Douluo Continent. Becoming the illegitimate child of Gu Rong and suffering from bullying with white eyes. Escape to the martial soul city, awaken the twin martial souls, the nine-headed dragon of hell, the golden holding, and the innate level 20 full soul power. On the day when the Tang clan reunites, it will be the day when Douluo transforms into heaven. Gu Rong was shocked and said, the legendary leader of the Tang sect is actually that rebellious son. Tang San was dumbfounded and said, I've all escaped to Douluo. How could your Tangmen pursue me here? Do you want to exaggerate? Xian Daolu said, you said you wanted to build a sect to play with, but you built the world's first sect. Master, fulfill your mission and have taken control of the 7 treasures glass sect. Master, fulfill your mission. I have become the leader of Haotian sect. Master, fulfill your mission. I have taken over the blue electric Tyrannosaurus Rex family leader. Tang Song. Ladies and gentlemen of the Tang dynasty, today we raise our clan to ascend to the divine realm. Martial Soul Palace Camp, developing power, decisive killing, female lead Qian Renxue. Keywords of the novel. Douluo. Traveling through the entire Tang clan without a pop-up window, Douluo. Traveling through the entire Tang clan. Download the complete TXT collection, Douluo. Traveling through the entire Tang clan. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Taking Tangmen across Douluo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Taking Tangmen across Douluo. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter where you are going, do not expose yourself. Wait for the order and reunite with Tangmen. The speaker is a young man, dressed in a luxurious robe, standing in front of the main seat of the magnificent hall. Oath to follow the sect leader to the death. Hundreds of people below knelt on one knee in unison. The young man no longer hesitated and took out a jade plaque. Bang! The jade plaque shattered and turned into dots, dissipating into the void. You despicable bastard, you dare to block our little princess's path and seek death. Tang Ge felt pain in his chest and head, and quickly analyzed that he had been kicked down, then hit his head on a stone. He was a bit speechless and was beaten up like this just as he crossed over. This kind of injury, if I don't cross over, the original owner will also die. Opening his eyes, he saw a group of children in front of him. As expected, the one who had just kicked him was a relatively sturdy little boy in front of him. In the center of this group of children, there is a very cute little girl, like a porcelain doll. She glanced at Tang Ge, with a hint of disgust in her eyes, and continued walking forward. You trash, when you see us, just roll away on your own, bah. The sturdy little boy spat out a mouthful of saliva directly at Tang Ge as he spoke. Tang Ge flipped over and dodged. With a cold snort, as the leader of the Tang sect, how can you bear this anger? Pick up a branch next to you and throw it out. Shoo. The branch penetrated the sturdy boy's neck. He covered the branch around his neck, his eyes widened, and he fell directly to the ground, losing his breath. Blood continued to gush out. Everyone was stunned, staring at the ancient song in fear, constantly retreating. Some even collapsed to the ground in fear, while others had already started crying loudly. Buzz. A piercing sensation came from the head. We're coming, Tang Ge murmured. This is already his second time traveling, so he knows he is currently receiving memories. Soon, the pain disappeared, and Tang Ge merged the memories of this body. This is actually the Douluo Continent, and it is within the 7 treasures of the glass sect. His identity is still somewhat complicated. He is the illegitimate son of Douluo Gu Rong, named Gu Ge. His mother was originally the daughter of a small sect leader. After being destroyed by the 7 treasures in glass sect, the men became slaves and the women were also separated from each other. Gu Rong fell in love with his mother and took her away as a tool for venting, but unexpectedly gave birth to a child. For his illegitimate son, he has no emotions at all, and even feels very disgusted, often beating and scolding. So not many people know the identity of Tang Ge. These people in front of me only consider Tang Ge as the illegitimate children of a disciple of the Seven Treasures Glass Sect, so they have become the targets of their humiliation. Killed, someone screamed. A few guards nearby heard the commotion and slowly walked towards this side. Thank you, Tang Ge sighed. After such a thing happened, I believe Gu Rong really wanted to kill herself. He glanced indifferently at the girl among the crowd, who was Ning Rongrong, the little princess of the Seven Treasures Glass Sect. Ning Rongrong looked at Tang Ge's gaze, retreating and falling to the ground, his face pale with tears already dripping down. Tang Ge no longer stops, he starts running. He also dared not take Ning Rongrong as a hostage. If that were true, he was afraid that all the title Douluo would come to surround him. I kept thinking about the route in my mind. This is not far from the entrance of the glazed academy of the sect, and there is a mountain behind the academy where there is a river that can lead to the outside world. Quickly, he rushed into the college gate and continued running towards the back mountain. But the guards behind him have already chased after him and shouted, "Hurry up and catch him." Some guards seemed inexplicable, but still surrounded Tang Ge. However, seeing that Tang Ge was just a child, they didn't take it seriously and did not summon a martial soul. Tang Ge picked up a handful of stones directly from the ground, and as his fingers danced, the guards approaching him all fell to the ground convulsing. The remaining guards were shocked. They didn't expect Tang Ge to be so powerful, summoning martial souls one after another. Most of them were soul masters with 2 or 3 rings. A long stick of martial soul intercepted him. Tang Ge flashed slightly, his long stick brushing against his cheek. Close your eyes and carefully feel the power of the long stick. Is this the strength of the second ring soul master? Tang Ge's lips were full of disdain. 2 fingers clicked on the soul master a few times, and finally inserted them directly into his eyes, quickly retreating. Ah! Whoosh whoosh! Another stone shot out, solving a wave of pursuers, and he ran away. Some students who were watching from afar were amazed. Who is that person? So powerful. Didn't you beat him up a few days ago and forget about it? Sleeping trough, that miscellaneous. After speaking, he immediately covered his mouth, afraid that Tang Ge would hear it. Suddenly, at the corner ahead, a 3-ring soul master's arm bulged and he punched Tang Ge. Whoosh! A stone shot fiercely on his arm, causing it to deflect. Tang Ge slipped out and turned to look at a girl in red in the distance. The stone just now was not shot by him, but by the girl's hand. Tang Ge didn't expect to encounter his own people who had just crossed over from the Tang Sect. He made a subtle gesture, then turned around and ran. The little girl nodded slightly and didn't follow, then shouted, "I'm afraid, come and protect me." A few guards who had intended to chase after them hesitated for a moment and they heard this, considering the identity of the little girl. Rushing to the back mountain, there is a river at the bottom of a cliff 20 meters below. Gu, stop for me. I saw a soul emperor with 6 rings coming from behind. He was a hunched old man, and his martial soul possessed him, looking like a goat. Tang Ge recognized him as Ning Zhengyang, the president of the Liuli Academy, and one of the few people who knew Tang Ge's true identity. His speed was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Gu. Tang Ge couldn't help but marvel, is this the strength of the Soul Emperor? Xiantian Gong has not been practiced yet, and there are no hidden weapons in hand, so it is definitely not an opponent. Ning Zhengyang grabbed towards the ancient song. Old man, I'm the son of the ancient head. Dare you touch me? Tang Ge grinned with a grin. The identity here depends on whether you dare to move or not. Although Gu Rong does not acknowledge his identity and even wants to kill him, after all, in the eyes of outsiders, he is Gu Rong's son. Although Ning Jingyang is a figure of the older generation of the Ning family and holds a high position in the Seven Treasures Glass Sect, he dare not speculate on the thoughts of a titled Douluo. Gu Rong is the third character of the Seven Treasures Glass Sect, and no one else can offend him. So Ning Jingyang stopped his hand. After slightly suppressing his anger, he said, Gu, you killed someone. Come back with me to accept punishment. I guarantee you won't die. Hee, old man, your face is so big. What's the use of your promise? I was bullied back then, and I didn't see you show up, did I? Ning Jingyang was so angry that he was about to smoke. He had been called an old guy by Tang Ge all along, and with a cold snort, he decided to catch Tang Ge first. Tang Ge kicked up the dust on the ground, shot out stones in his hand, and then tilted back and fell down. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Escape from the Seven Treasures of the Glass Sect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Escape from the Seven Treasures of the Glass Sect. Ning Jingyang held his hands in front of him, as if he had anticipated earlier. The stone hit his joints and acupoints, causing him to feel a sharp pain. When he reacted and looked down, Tang Ge slammed into the river with a thud. Dean, what should we do now? A group of guards hurriedly arrived, panting heavily. Hurry up and find me along the river. I want to see people in life and corpses in death. You, hurry up and inform Elder Gu. Elder Gu. This guard is puzzled. Although the academy has died, there shouldn't be any need to trouble senior figures with such small matters, right? Go quickly, Ning Jingyang scolded. He didn't have time to explain. Directly walking down the mountain wall, the goat was already able to walk on the mountain wall, so even with a martial soul possessed, he was able to do so. After 3 days. At a tributary, there are many water plants inside, and a head slowly emerges from the water plants. Seeing no one outside, Tang Ge crawled out and lay on the shore. He has been hiding in the water for the past 3 days and his body is almost soaked. He learned the turtle breath technique and was able to hold his breath for a long time until he couldn't help it anymore. He used his swim bladder to breathe and swallowed fish and shrimp when he was hungry. It was only then that he endured in the water for 3 days. But this is also the limit. If he drags on any longer, his current body without any exercise will definitely not be able to withstand it. Fortunately, after 3 days, the people of the Seven Treasures Glass Sect believed that he had escaped from the river. After all, if dead, the body is still easy to find, and a child cannot hide in the river for 3 days. So most of the people of the Seven Treasures Liuli sect have already withdrawn and are searching towards the surrounding cities and towns. Tang Ge quickly calculated his current position, and his predecessor had never left the Seven Treasures Glass Sect. He was very unfamiliar to the outside world, but fortunately, after reading the map, he knew the general layout of the area. Without enough time to rest, he quickly burrowed into the grass. Tangmen was the strongest sect in its past life and was skilled in hidden weapons, so there are also many assassins in Tangmen. Tang Ge is familiar with how to lurk, counter-scout, and survive in the wilderness. As long as the Soul Douluo and Title Douluo level characters of the Seven Treasures Glass Sect do not appear, he is confident that no one can find him. In a restaurant, Tang Ge had already changed into a new outfit, put down his chopsticks, and watched the pedestrians coming and going downstairs. The sound of footsteps rang out, and Tang Ge remained silent. He said calmly, "You're here." The newcomer is a girl, who is the one who took the initiative in the Liuli Academy. See the sect leader. The girl knelt down on one knee and looked at Tang Ge with burning eyes. Do you recognize me? Tang Ge had already anticipated it, looking at the girl with some helplessness. He also recognized who it was at a glance. Of course, besides our Tang sect leader, who else could have such a brilliant technique? The girl smiled and didn't wait for Tang Ge's command. She got up and sat directly next to Tang Ge, with her arms on the table and her palms supporting her face, carefully watching Tang Ge. The girl in front of me is named Ning Xuangshuang. In her past life, she was Tang Ge's right-hand man and was able to obtain the position of Tang Sect elder with a different surname, which shows her skills. If there were no outsiders around, her way of getting along with Tang Ge would be as friends, so there was no sense of restraint when facing Tang Ge. Tang Ge, there are people from the Seven Treasures Glass Sect outside. You need to be careful, Ning Xuangshuang said with concern. It's okay, they don't have the ability to find me, Tang Ge said confidently. Ning Xuangshuang nodded lightly, believing in Tang Ge's strength. I didn't expect us to come into such a fun world, where there is such a strange thing as a martial soul, Ning Xuangshuang said excitedly. Then with a small gesture, a small tower appeared in her hand, and beside her was a yellow centenary soul ring. The Seven Treasures Glass Pagoda, not bad, not bad. It's quite good to awaken this martial soul, Tang Ge exclaimed. You should know that in the Seven Treasures Glass Sect, only a few disciples with direct bloodline can awaken the Seven Treasures Glass Pagoda. Oh, it's a pity. This is an auxiliary-type martial soul. I am an unparalleled witch, how can I play auxiliary in the back? Ning Xuangshuang said dejectedly. Are you still not satisfied? The Seven Treasures Glass Pagoda is the strongest auxiliary martial soul, which many people dream of. Tang Ge shook his head helplessly. Master, show me your martial soul. Ning Xuangshuang was very curious. I haven't awakened my martial soul yet, there's no such thing as a martial soul. Yes, you won't be able to awaken until you're 6 years old this year. The awakening ceremony at Liuli Academy only started 3 months later, Ning Xuangshuang said with regret. She is lucky, her body has awakened her martial soul for a year. Tang Ge, what are your plans next? I plan to go to the Martial Soul City. Martial Soul City, that's so far away, but it's okay. Let's go back and tidy up and play together, Ning Xuangshuang said excitedly. Tang Ge shook his head and said, if you don't leave, you should stay at the Seven Treasures Glass Sect. Ning Xuangshuang's eyes instantly turned red. Why? Tang Ge, you don't want me anymore. Tang Ge touched Ning Xuangshuang's head and whispered, I want you to stay at the Seven Treasures Glass Sect because you have something to do for me. Upon hearing this, Ning Xuangshuang breathed a sigh of relief and said seriously, okay, you can speak up. I promise to help you do it beautifully. Immediately, Tang Ge told Ning Xuangshuang about his background. Ning Xuangshuang looked like he was eating a melon, and his chin was almost falling off. Then her eyes turned red, and tears were already swirling. She fused her memories and knew that Tang Ge's predecessor had been bullied. I thought it was already very miserable, but now after listening to Tang Ge's words, I feel that Tang Ge's predecessor is also too pitiful. Tang Ge, are you asking me to stay and take care of your mother in this lifetime? Tang Ge nodded, but Ning Xuangshuang still understood him very well. He knew what to ask her for before he even said anything. But this is one of them. I want you to lurk in the Seven Treasures Glass Sect, and I will use you in the future. In addition, as one of the top 3 sects, the Seven Treasures Glass Sect has a rich heritage. You should use the resources here to become stronger as soon as possible. Don't let me leave you too far in this life. Don't worry, Tang Ge. I remember everything you said, Ning Xuangshuang said, then clenched his powder fist. In this life, I will leave you behind. Then come on, I have to go, Tang Ge stood up and said. Also, remember to be careful. I guess when we walked over, there might have been some danger with our predecessor. We just died, so we took over the body. You need to investigate carefully when you go back. After speaking, she turned around and left. The background of Ning Xuangshuang's life was not simple, and with her abilities, Tang Ge believed she could solve this problem. Ning Xuangshuang looked at Tang Ge's back and began to feel sad again. By the way, remember to pay, Tang Ge turned around and said, then disappeared from Ning Xuangshuang's view. Ning Xuangshuang was taken aback for a moment, then shouted at Tang Ge, damn it, Tang Ge, I didn't bring any money either. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Arriving at Martial Soul City, Gu Rong chases after. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 3. Arriving at Martial Soul City, Gu Rong chases after. In front of me is a magnificent city, with walls nearly 100 meters high. Standing in front of me and looking up, it makes me feel so insignificant. Is this the Martial Soul City? Tang Ge murmured. Even though he was the leader of the Tang Sect in his previous life and was already a world hegemon, he still felt very shocked when he first saw the Martial Soul City. Buzz. Suddenly, a strong sense of pressure struck. Tang Ge turned his head and suddenly felt a tingling sensation on his scalp. I saw a huge creature flying towards this direction, which was a ferocious dragon made entirely of bones. Tang Ge's face changed greatly, but he didn't expect Gu Rong to come after him personally. He quickly ran towards the Martial Soul City. The bone dragon is too fast, and the short distance of several tens of meters is like a trench in the sky. Fortunately, powerful auras rose up inside the Martial Soul City. Gu Rong paused for a few moments, and Tang Ge seized this brief opportunity to rush to the gate of the Martial Soul City. Then, he stopped and turned around to look at Gu Rong jokingly. Title Douluo personally took action. Even if he ran far, he couldn't escape. However, he had already arrived at the territory of the Martial Soul Hall, and he wanted to see if Gu Rong dared to come over. Most pedestrians in the surrounding area became nervous and worried about being implicated. Where are these people from? How dare they charge into the Martial Soul City? A few people are very excited, and if a strong player of this level fights, it will definitely be particularly exciting. All the guards above and below the city wall summoned their martial souls at this moment, looking seriously at Gu Rong. The Martial Soul City ahead, this adult, stop. A guard leader scolded. Gu Rong looked at Tang Ge at the city gate and gritted her teeth as she continued to charge forward. Gu Douluo, what do you mean by this? A majestic voice sounded, and a burly and majestic-looking man walked through the void, suspended above the city gate. With each step taken, a soul ring rises, and in the end, 9 soul rings surround its body. And a golden crocodile phantom appeared, like a wild beast. Golden Crocodile Douluo. Tang Ge recognized it, and it seemed that he had stabilized this time. In front of the second worshipper of the Martial Soul Hall, Gu Rong was just a dish. Almost at the same time, the sound of breaking through the air sounded, and figures appeared one after another next to Golden Crocodile Douluo, calmly looking at Gu Rong. Gu Rong's forehead had already burst into a cold sweat. He didn't expect that he had not even stepped into the Martial Soul City, and there were so many powerful figures in the Martial Soul Hall. Gu Douluo, do your 7 Treasures Glass Sect want to launch a war against the Martial Soul Hall? Jean Crocodile Douluo said calmly. Don't misunderstand, everyone. I came here to pursue a criminal from the 7 Treasures Glass Sect, with no intention of offending the Martial Soul Hall, Gu Rong quickly said. Faced with so many strong opponents, he can't stand it hard. If we really fight, he won't be enough to tear apart this group of title holders, so when it's time to be soft, we need to be soft. Then it makes sense for you to summon the Martial Soul True Body and rush towards the Martial Soul City. This was a man with a soft voice, and his seductive posture made people feel like he was a woman. Chrysanthemum Douluo, I am willing to offer a great apology, but can you let me take someone away? As he spoke, he glanced at Tang Ge. The person next to Tang Ge was frightened and quickly retreated. Everyone followed his gaze and saw that it was just a 6-year-old child. Some people became interested and didn't know how the child had provoked Gu Rong, who chased him to the Martial Soul City. Gu Douluo, you have both collided with my Martial Soul City and made demands for us. Is it difficult? Have you become accustomed to being arrogant in the 7 Treasures Glass Sect and not taking my Martial Soul Hall seriously? Jean Crocodile Douluo said in a deep voice. Gu Rong can be said to have slapped the face of the Martial Soul Hall today. If they still hand over Tang Ge, they will probably be laughed at by people all over the world. Gu Rong looked at Jean Crocodile Douluo and others, and seeing that they had not shown any compromise, he knew he couldn't take Tang Ge away. "I'm sorry, I'm leaving now," Gu Rong frowned. "I didn't take the Golden Crocodile Douluo and others to heart. After all, the 7 Treasures and Glass Sect is also the Upper 3 Sect. I believe the Martial Soul Hall won't make things too difficult for him." He coldly glanced at Tang Ge, turned around and retreated. Even if he escaped to the Martial Soul City, he still had some means to deal with Tang Ge. He couldn't come to Ming, so he couldn't play with Yin. If he were to leave intact today, he might be laughed at, Yu Guan snorted coldly. Golden Crocodile Douluo turned around, glanced at the person next to him, and then left this place. This person looked similar to a teenager, with his left eye covered in an ice and snow mask and a head of silver long hair. He nodded, a brilliant long bow condensed in his hand, and 9 soul rings appeared. The 5th soul ring lights up. The light between heaven and earth seems to be absorbed, condensed into an arrow in the center of the long bow. Whoosh! Arrows pierced through the air and shot towards Gu Rong. Sensing an attack, Gu Rong kept dodging, but he didn't expect the Martial Soul Hall to attack him. But the arrows seemed to stick to him, constantly changing direction and relentlessly pursuing him. Seeing that she couldn't shake it off, Gu Rong gritted her teeth and swept her bony tail over. Boom! The bone tail exploded directly. "It's really strong." Tang Ge swallowed his saliva. Gu Rong was shocked and didn't expect the attack to be so strong. He quickly shouted, "I am the elder of the 7 Treasures Glass Sect. If you provoke me, it will be a provocation to the Upper 3 Sect." But no one paid attention to him, and they were all quietly watching Gu Rong. Now that face has been regained, Gu Rong, as the elder of the 7 Treasures Glass Sect, they really dare not kill Gu Rong now. "But I am very unhappy in my heart. What about the 3 previous sections?" Surprisingly, he used the names of the 3 sects to suppress them. Gu Rong saw that they were no longer taking action and quickly fled. "This little ghost is not easy," Yu Guan looked at Tang Ge. Guanling Douluo didn't speak and left directly. Yu Guan thought for a moment, but didn't interfere with anything, just a little brat. All the strong ones left without really starting a fight. Tang Ge sighed, "It's boring." 1 month later, at the central square of Wuhuan City. This place is very huge, capable of accommodating tens of thousands of people. At the very center, 20 arenas were erected. But today is not a battle, but a day of awakening of martial souls. Every year at this time, the Martial Soul Hall sends personnel to various villages to awaken the martial souls of eligible children. In addition, awakening points have been set up in the Martial Soul City, where any eligible child can awaken their martial souls for free. Tang Ge silently lined up in one of the queues, and awakening his martial soul was also something he was looking forward to, so he came to queue early. Martial Soul Sickle, with 0 innate soul power, next one. Martial Soul Cold Moon Blade, with a little innate soul power, child, congratulations on becoming a soul master. Most people in this world have abandoned martial souls and cannot become soul masters. Even if some have 1 or 2 levels of innate soul power, their potential is very limited. Martial Soul Roaring Sirius, with innate soul power of 6 points, has a great talent. Child, are you willing to enter the Martial Soul Academy to study? The child was taken aback for a moment, and a middle-aged man beside him quickly said excitedly, "Yes, sir, we do." You should know that they ran all the way to the Martial Soul City to awaken, but it was to allow their children to enter the Martial Soul Academy after awakening. But the recruitment requirements for the Martial Soul Academy are very strict. Either the martial soul is strong, or the innate soul power reaches level 6 to qualify for admission. The person from the Martial Soul Hall quickly registered the information and handed out a token. 3 days later, report to the Martial Soul Academy. Be sure to arrive on time, thank you, sir. The father and son squeezed out of the crowd amidst the envy of the crowd. Child, come up here. Upon hearing this, Tang Ge walked onto the arena and arrived at the center of the formation. Don't be afraid later, hold your breath and concentrate, follow your body's sensations, and release the things inside your body. The staff patiently explained. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Twin Divine Martial Souls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Twin Divine Martial Souls. Hey, isn't that the little guy who defected from the Seven Treasures Glass Sect? On a tall building in front of the square, Yu Guan stood by the window, his eyes fixed on Tang Ge. Since Gu Rong left, he has sent people to investigate Tang Ge. The Seven Treasures Glass Sect has been searching for it with great momentum, and it is easy to find out. Knowing that Tang Ge was just the illegitimate child of an unknown disciple of the Seven Treasures Glass Sect, he was bullied and killed one person, and then fled to the Martial Soul City. Guanling stood beside Yueguan, glanced at Tang Ge, and said calmly, "It seems there aren't any good seedlings this year." The two people actually represent two factions, one is the Pope's Palace led by Bibidong, and the other is the Temple of Worship led by Qiandao Lu. Every year when the martial soul awakens, both sides will send people to watch and see if there are any good seedlings emerging. It's not that every year there are geniuses like Helena and the others. Yu Guan was not surprised. Years ago, the three great geniuses of Evil Moon, Huliena, and Yen appeared simultaneously, all of whom were top-notch martial souls. That year really caused a huge uproar. After all, it was not easy to have a genius of their level in previous years. Yu Guan suddenly closed her mouth when she wanted to say something more. He could clearly feel something rushing out behind Tang Ge, and there seemed to be energy gathering in his left hand as well. Is it? Bang! Without much time to think, the moon pass shattered the window, instantly summoning a martial soul and arriving in front of Tang Ge in the blink of an eye. A huge chrysanthemum phantom completely enveloped Tang Ge and the staff of the martial soul hall beside him. Did that just become a band Douluo? Definitely, 9 soul rings, I saw them. Who are you fooling? With such a fast speed, can you see clearly? If I were to be banned from Douluo, I would eat upside down. Whoosh! Guanling also broke through the air, with 9 soul rings on his body very prominent, and he rushed directly into the chrysanthemum shadow. Lying in the trough, it is indeed a titled Douluo. What do you eat upside down? What is the reason for the Douluo Run Awakening platform? What's wrong with Elder Moon and 5 sacrifices? At a awakening platform in the square, 3 people gathered together, and the people around them consciously left a circle for them. The speaker is a burly young man with prominent red hair, red eyes, and fiery patterns on his face. He is Yen, the golden generation of the Martial Soul Palace. There is another person beside him who looks somewhat indifferent but very handsome, with a strand of red hair on his silver short hair. This is the Evil Moon. As for the most eye-catching Helena, although young, she had already revealed a hint of charm, and the little boys around couldn't help but glance towards her. Is it possible that the person just now had a problem? Helena asked in confusion. Do you see clearly who the person testing the martial soul is? Xiaoyu said in a deep voice. I only saw a boy, Helena said. Can Nanqing be the descendant of a significant figure? Yen asked curiously. Tang Ge was also startled when he saw Yu Guan rushing in front of him. Could it be that he knew his identity, so he came to arrest him? It's impossible. Although the Martial Soul Hall has not yet expressed its stance during this period, it is indeed having hostile relations with the 3 sects in secret. It's unlikely that they have such a lack of confidence to attack themselves. Don't be distracted, keep going, Yu Guan said to Tang Ge. Subsequently, he personally activated the formation to awaken Tang Ge's martial soul. Glancing at Guanling who was following closely, he snorted, What are you doing here? He had been staring at Tang Ge all along before, so as soon as he noticed the situation, he rushed over. I didn't expect Guanling to be so shameless and follow him. Guanling's mouth curved slightly. If you can come, I can't come. Tang Ge calmed his mind and, under the guidance of the moon pass, a stronger force flooded into his body. Buzz. In Tang Ge's hand appeared a pair of armor that could only cover his left hand, completely pitch black with patterns on it. The gloves slowly grew larger and eventually covered Tang Ge's left hand, which Tang Ge felt was full of strength. Divine level martial soul. Guanling said with some uncertainty. He had already felt this aura on a divine level martial soul like the six-winged angel before. It should be. Yu Guan nodded cautiously. Tang Ge found that he could clearly feel some hidden weapons on his body and could control them from afar. Shwa 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 under the gaze of Yu Guan and others. Several flying knives and needles slowly floated out of his arms, waist, pants, and even hair, spinning around him. Is it a metal control ability? Tang Ge murmured. Yu Guan and Guanling looked at each other. They couldn't figure out why a 6-year-old child was hiding so many weapons. Tang Ge didn't have time to think much because he felt like there was something inside him that wanted to rush out. Continue. This time it's Tang Ge's turn to shout. Yu Guan was taken aback for a moment. He had already made some guesses, so he continued to activate the formation. In an instant, there seemed to be a crack in the void, and a paw slowly appeared. Next, there was a dragon head with a fierce expression on its face. Dragon. Guanling widened her eyes. You should know that dragons are very powerful creatures, and any martial soul that is stained with a trace of dragon blood is a very powerful martial soul. Besides, looking at this head, it looks exactly like a dragon. Is it possible that this martial soul is a real dragon? But before he could think more, another dragon head condensed together. Sleeping in the trough, the 3 lives martial soul. Guanling, who had always been quiet, couldn't help but curse profusely. No, it's a martial soul, but it has 2 heads, said Yu Guan. The lower part of the head is connected together. Guanling breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he wasn't so abnormal. He had heard of the twin martial souls, but the 3 martial souls went against the sky. But as the phantom condensed, one head after another appeared, and soon a 9-headed dragon appeared in front of them. Isn't this worse than the 3 lives martial soul? Yu Guan swallowed her saliva. Even though Tang Ge has just awakened and doesn't have a soul ring, Yu Guan can still feel the power of these 9-headed dragons. Twin divine level martial souls. Guanling had become numb. He has seen a genius before, and he himself is a top-notch genius, but he has never seen such a pervert before. Even if we forget about twin martial souls, they are still divine-level martial souls, and it seems that they are also divine-level mutated martial souls. Anyway, these 2 types of martial souls are not recorded in the history of Douluo Continent. Lao Guang, am I dreaming? Moonlight still couldn't believe it. Pop. A loud slap rang in the face. Moonlight stared blankly at Guanling and said, Old Light, you hit me in the face. Does it hurt? Pain. After speaking, the 2 of them turned their gaze to Tang Ge again, their eyes constantly moving between the iron gloves and the 9-headed dragon, their mouths wide open. The person who first awakened Tang Ge's martial soul was now completely like a wooden person, staring straight at Tang Ge. He had awakened so many martial souls, and the first time he saw this scene, he was completely stunned. The appearance of the martial soul can be seen on the cover. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Golden Holding Hell 9-Headed Dragon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Golden Holding Hell 9-Headed Dragon. First, put away the martial soul. Imagine that the martial soul is a part of your body, and you can completely control them, said Guanling. Tang Ge nodded and quickly mastered the trick, taking back the 2 martial souls. Then Yueguan's gaze turned to the man. The man was startled and reacted, breaking out in a cold sweat and kneeling directly on the ground. Elder, I haven't seen anything. I have elders and subordinates, please let me go. The man cried bitterly and kept kowtowing. In just a moment, he had already imagined many scenes of his own tragedy. He knew he had seen something he shouldn't have seen, such a genius figure, which was going to be hidden, and it was about the rise and fall of a power. So in his opinion, in order to prevent information leakage, he must have died. With this in mind, he gritted his teeth and picked up the flying knife that Tang Ge had just dropped to the ground. Tang Ge was taken aback. Could it be that he wanted to take himself hostage? But the man directly aimed at his neck, his eyes full of determination. 2 elders, I, Wang Shua, have been diligent and have never done anything wrong in the martial soul hall in my life. Now that I have committed suicide here, I hope you can treat my family well. Whoosh! Before he could finish speaking, Tang Ge summoned Jin Jiji and with just one wave, he took away all the hidden weapons, including the flying sword in Wang Shua's hand. Playing with knives is very dangerous, especially my knife, Tang Ge said calmly. Wang Shua was dumbfounded. Who said you want to die? Yuguan said leisurely. Don't kill me. Just be strict with your mouth. If the news leaks, you will naturally get into trouble. Also, don't leave the martial soul city for the next 20 years. Thank you very much, elder. Wang Shua instantly relaxed, his heart filled with gratitude, but it was just a foot restriction, much better than death. You go out first, remember what to say and what not to say. Obedience, Wang Shua said. Yuguan waved his hand, and the chrysanthemum shadow cracked a hole, releasing Wang Shua. What is the name of your martial soul? Guanling asked. Jin Jiji. Tang Ge lifted his left hand, which was a mutated martial soul. His mother's family inherits a martial soul called Jin Yuanshou, which is sensitive to metals and very useful for exploring mineral veins. Now there has been a mutation, becoming a divine-level martial soul with a golden grip, wielding the golden element and having absolute control over all weapons. If combined with Tang clan's hidden weapons, Tang Ge feels that this martial soul is simply tailor-made for him, it's perfect. After retracting the golden holding, he continued, and the 9-headed dragon of hell. He originally thought that his martial soul, like Gu Rong, was a bone dragon. After all, bone dragons were much stronger than Jin Yuanshou, so there was a high chance of awakening bone dragons. I thought it would be great if I could awaken the bone dragon, which is also a top-notch martial soul. But unexpectedly, this martial soul also mutated and became very powerful. With this twin divine-level mutated martial soul, Tang Ge has nothing to say, just 2 words, invincible. Good name, Yueguan exclaimed. Externally, Wang Shua has been surrounded by a group of people. What kind of martial soul did that person awaken? Yen grabbed Wang Shua's collar directly and had been asking for a while. Wang Shua remained silent, he was already angry. Let go, speak well, said Xiaoyu. There are still many outsiders here, so it's not good to spread rumors about attacking our own people. Yen had no choice but to let go of his hand. Wang Shua, just talk about it. What's the big deal? Said another staff member of the Martial Soul Hall. I really don't know, Elder, you directly controlled me and couldn't see me at all. Wang Shua said with a bitter smile. Helena silently released her martial soul, and as the soul ring lit up, she was about to unleash her charm. What is that? I saw small chrysanthemums flying out one after another above the huge chrysanthemum shadow. Immediately after, an arrow broke through the phantom and exploded in the air. Guanling, what are you doing? Yuguan frowned. So why are you secretly sending out signals? Guanling asked in response, but he had been staring at the moon pass. I'm looking for a good teacher for this little guy. Hee, I'm the same. This little guy is a twin martial soul and should be a disciple of His Majesty the Pope. Can you still reap all the benefits? The Pope wants to take it from Helena. Can that be the same? Tang Ge could tell that he was trying to grab him. Whoosh! Just as they were arguing, two figures appeared in the sky at the same time. His Majesty the Pope, someone exclaimed in surprise. Subsequently, all members of the Martial Soul Hall bowed respectfully. Who else is that person? Everyone was puzzled, but felt that his aura was not weaker than Bibidong's. Even Helena and the others looked at him with suspicion. They had never seen this person before. However, just at the edge of the square, a girl completely covered by her robe recognized her and murmured, "Grandpa." Two figures instantly rushed into the chrysanthemum phantom. His Majesty the Pope. Great offering. Yu Guan and Guanling quickly bowed. Tang Ge carefully scrutinized the two of them. The woman was dressed in a luxurious robe, with a 9-curved purple golden crown on her head, a stunning face, and the demeanor of a high-ranking official. Indeed beautiful, Tang Ge thought to herself. The other person is known as the Great Sacrifice, which is naturally 1,000 streams. He has a strong physique, simple clothing, but has a sacred aura. What did you call me for? Bibidong asked. To Your Majesty the Pope, I have discovered a promising candidate who can definitely inherit your legacy, said Yu Guan. Upon hearing this, Bibidong looked at Tang Ge, remained silent for a moment, frowned, and said, I have a candidate, so I don't need to take any more disciples. In her opinion, if Yu Guan could summon her over, she might just have a genius with innate soul power. She was indeed a seedling of the Douluo title, but she didn't have time to bring so many disciples. The moon is in a hurry, and Helena is good, but now there is a better choice here. His Majesty the Pope, he has great talent. Alright, there's no need to say more, Bibidong waved his hand. Guanling immediately said to Qiandao Lu, great offering, you can accept this child. Oh. Qiandao Lu frowned. Guanling knows his personality. He won't accept any disciples, but he still sends a signal to come over. It seems that this child must have something extraordinary. He still decided to believe in Guanling, then I'll take it for now, child. Would you be willing to worship me as a teacher? Wait, Bibidong interrupted. Yu Guan and Guanling both had such a fondness for this child, and Qiandao Lu even directly offered to accept her disciple, which also aroused her curiosity. What's going on? Qiandao Lu looked at Bibidong dissatisfied. Bibidong had only recently killed his own son, and although Qiandao Lu was concerned about the overall situation and did not want Qianrenxue to lose her mother at a young age, his heart was still filled with resentment towards Bibidong. Although he was aware of what Chihiro Ji was and how much he had done in comparison to Bidong, Chihiro Ji was still his bloodline. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Sword and Crossbow Tension. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Sword and Crossbow Tension. What's special about this child? Bibidong looked at Yue Guan curiously and asked. He is a twin martial soul. What? Bibidong and Qiandaoliu were both shocked. You should know that twin martial souls are very rare, but in this era, the Douluo Continent is currently just like a twin martial soul in Bibidong. Bibidong's gaze became scorching as he looked at Tang Ge. If it were a twin martial soul, it would indeed be her best disciple. In addition, both martial souls are divine-level martial souls, Yu Guan swallowed and continued. I'll take this child, Qiandao Lu said directly. Whether it is a twin martial soul or possessing a divine-level martial soul, it is worth him accepting as a disciple. The Great Sacrifice, he and I are both twin martial souls, and the best choice is to be taught by me, Bibidong retorted. She didn't originally want to have any more conflicts with Qiandaoliu. After all, she killed his son and Qiandaoliu didn't move. She was already very lenient. But if Tang Ge is accepted as a disciple, when she grows up, the future will definitely be her greatest assistance. Can't I just teach? Qian Daolu snorted coldly and then looked at Tang Ge. Child, what's your name? Tang Ge. On the side, Yu Guan wanted to say something, but she still closed her mouth and just changed her name. There was no need to say anything that caused Tang Ge's displeasure. Qian Daolu nodded and asked, what is his innate soul power? I haven't tested it yet, Guanling said. Let's test it first, Qian Daolu instructed. Guanling took out a purple crystal and was about to hand it to Tang Ge. Wait, use this. Qian Daolu handed out a crystal with a better texture. The crystals used in the awakening ceremony can usually only detect up to level 10 soul power, and Qian Daolu thinks it may not be enough. Although only their angel family in this world may have an innate soul power exceeding level 10, it is certain that Tang Ge may also have this possibility. Guanling nodded and handed the crystal to Tang Ge, grasp it tightly. Tang Ge is also curious about his innate soul power. In theory, it should be no problem to have innate full soul power, right? After all, I am a twin martial soul. There are two streams of energy in his body now. One is the internal power obtained from practicing the Hunyuan Xiantian skill after crossing the time, and the other should be the so-called soul power. After gripping the crystal tightly, the soul power in the body was aroused and rushed into the crystal along the arm. The crystal instantly burst out with a dazzling light. Level 20 innate soul power. Yu Guan has become numb. I originally thought Tang Ge was already a genius among all the geniuses, but I didn't expect it to be even more abnormal. He can become a title holder Douluo, and he can be considered a genius himself, but now compared to Tang Ge, he feels like he's nothing. Guanling remained silent, her eyes scanning Bibi Dong and Qian Daolu. It was likely that a verbal battle would follow. Tang Ge's talent has surpassed everyone present, so he won't feel strange about anything that happens. Bibi Dong walked directly to Tang Ge and looked at the crystal in shock. She originally thought she was the only twin martial soul of the Douluo Continent era, and the appearance of Tang Ge had already surprised her very much. As for the innate level 20 soul power, she believes it is unique to the Qianjia family, as they possess divine level martial soul 6-winged angels. Whether Qian Daolu or her daughter Qianren Shui, they are all innate level 20 soul power. I never expected Tang Ge to have an innate soul power of level 20. When it comes to Tang Ge, not only is his martial soul rebellious, but his innate soul power also rebellious. This is completely the most demonic existence in Douluo Continent since ancient times. If Tang Ge is cultivated, then her plan will undoubtedly have no obstacles. Looking back now, compared to Tang Ge, Hulayina is truly like heaven and earth. After all, Hulayina can't even compare to 1,000 steps of snow, and now she can't even compare to Tang Ge. She glanced at Qian Daolu and said that she couldn't compromise today. Even if the hatred deepened, she wouldn't have to worry about debt. Good child, God bless my martial soul hall, ha ha ha. Qian Daolu burst into laughter. As the inheritor of the angel family, he can be said to be the closest character to the level of God, but he was still killed in the final level. The only hope now lies with Qian Rengshu. As long as Qian Rengshu can become a god, he will die without regret, so he has no interest in anything else. But now Tang Ge has appeared, not only can he become the heavenly one of the next generation martial soul hall, but there is definitely a chance to become a god, and his heart has once again become hot. Xiao Gu, I am Pope Bibi Dong of the martial soul hall, and I am also a twin martial soul like you. Would you be willing to become my disciple? Bibi Dong spoke up first. What about the Pope? I'm the one who will worship the Hall of Wulin in the end. Tang Ge and the strongest people in the Hall of Wulin all gather in the Hall of Sacrifice. I worship thousands of people. Would you like to be my disciple, said thousands of people. If someone who doesn't understand is here, they must think that the Pope is more powerful. After all, he is the ruler of the martial soul temple. Your Excellency the Pope. But Tang Ge is clear that the place where the strong gather is in the sacrificial hall, and only those who reach level 95 can enter. Moreover, Qiandaoliu is a strong person at level 99, which can be said to be the ceiling of this world. Become my disciple, and from now on you will be my successor, the holy son of the martial soul hall, the next pope. All the resources I have will lean towards you, ensuring that you become a title Douluo as quickly as possible. Buzz. A powerful pressure burst out, and 9 soul rings appeared on Qiandaoliu's body, while a 6-winged angel appeared behind Qiandaolu. The chrysanthemum barrier at the moon pass shattered instantly, and they appeared in everyone's sight. People who came to participate in the awakening of martial souls looked up at the huge angel figure, coupled with its faint aura, and involuntarily knelt on the ground to worship. Quickly, figures burst into the air, all of them prominent figures from the martial soul hall. They looked at the center of the square and didn't understand why the great offering summoned the martial soul. Some of the knowledgeable people instantly became nervous. Is Qiandaoliu going to take action compared to Bidong? The ghosts that arrived at this moment were being stared at by a group of worshippers, their backs covered in cold sweat. If they really wanted to fight, they couldn't fight at all. The tense atmosphere between the two sides made everyone else in the martial soul hall feel uneasy. Is it possible that the martial soul hall is going to engage in an internal battle? At this moment, Hulina and the 3 of them couldn't help but step back. The battle of the strong at this level was not something they could intervene in. Xian Rinxue showed a worried expression. Qiandaolu was the grandfather who loved her the most. Although Bibidong didn't treat her well, she was also her mother. If 2 people fought, she would feel sad for anyone who got hurt. Feeling the strength of Qiandaoliu, Bibidong frowned. She knew her situation well, and if given a few more years, she had the confidence to confront Qiandaoliu head-on, but now she is not a match. Qiandaolu looked at Bibidong coldly, already harboring resentment towards her. Now Bibidong dared to compete with him for disciples. He had long wanted to teach Bibidong a lesson, but he had been considering the overall situation before, so he restrained himself. Now if Bibidong said anything more, he would really like to teach this daughter-in-law a lesson so that he can know who the final say in the Wulin Hall. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Who Said I Want to Apprentice? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Who Said I Want to Apprentice? Then let him choose for himself. Bibidong sighed and chose to take a step back. She didn't want to shake hands with Qiandao. Humph. Qiandaolu let out a cold snort and then dispersed his martial soul. After just one scene, Tang Ge should know who is more powerful. Many people breathed a sigh of relief. If there were to be a fight, it would be troublesome. Instead of being a person from the martial soul hall, looking at the people hanging in the sky at this moment, my heart is filled with shock. It is truly the holy land of soul masters, and there are so many strong ones. Subsequently, everyone's gaze turned to Tang Ge, and upon hearing their words, their dispute actually originated from the child in front of them. Child, who do you want to have as your teacher? Qiandaolu asked. Upon hearing this, everyone present was shocked. The great offering is about to accept disciples. And it seems that both the Pope and the Apostle have a liking for this child at the same time. Hulina took a few steps back with a pale face, looking at Bibidong incredulously. Not long ago, Bibidong promised her that she would be accepted as a disciple in the future as long as she performed well. While she was looking forward to it, Bibidong was actually competing with another titled Douluo Lord for a disciple. Nana, are you okay? Yen immediately sensed something was wrong with Hulina and asked with concern. Xiaoyu helped Hulina and looked at Tang Ge in the field, with a hint of coldness flashing in her eyes. Xian Rinxue, hidden under her long robe in the distance, frowned and looked at Tang Ge, unsure of his uniqueness. Even her indifferent grandfather wanted to take him as his disciple. As for the other children who came to participate in the martial soul awakening, not to mention, they all looked at Tang Ge with envy in their eyes. They wished it was themselves standing there. "Who said I'm going to apprentice?" Tang Ge said leisurely. Upon hearing this, Qian Daolu and Bibi looked at each other to the east. They dared to fight fiercely there, and Tang Ge never thought of worshipping them as his teacher. Tang Ge, both of them are the top figures in the martial soul hall. It's a great opportunity for you to worship anyone as your teacher, Guangling couldn't help but speak up. He was very worried that Tang Ge was too young, so he didn't understand the reason behind it. If he missed the opportunity, it would be a pity. Everyone else looked at Tang Ge in great shock. This was an opportunity to take it to the sky. "It's okay, even if you don't worship us as teachers, we won't force it," Qian Daolu pondered for a moment and said. "He is naturally easy-going. If Tang Ge really doesn't have the intention of becoming a teacher, then everything will be fine with fate." Bibi Dong frowned and slowly spoke, "Little one, you need to think carefully before answering." It's really an honor for me to win the favor of the two adults. I'm not someone who doesn't know what to do, just you," Tang Ge said without hesitation, and his gaze turned to Qian Daolu. When he was weak, he worshipped a teacher to protect himself. Why did he refuse? Just now, it was just a joke to liven up the atmosphere, and you can tell their magnanimity from their answers. Let's just forget about Bibi Dong. Although Bibi Dong is a beautiful woman who looks quite pleasing to the eye, Tang Ge really doesn't like her personality, and even has some disgust towards her. As the Pope of the Martial Soul Hall, he fell in love with the past and repeatedly let go of Yu Shaojiang, damaging the interests of the Martial Soul Hall. In addition, he also had suicidal thoughts towards his own daughter. How can such a person be worth relying on? Okay, great, from now on you will be my disciple of Qian Daolu. Qian Daolu laughed. Bibidong's face was ugly, and he didn't expect Tang Ge to choose Qian Daolu. "I have some conditions." Tang Ge looked straight into Qian Daolu's eyes. "Oh. What conditions?" Qian Daolu was curious about what conditions a child could offer. "Firstly, I want to prioritize resources. Secondly, as long as I am unwilling, I cannot be forced to do anything. Thirdly, when I want to leave, I can leave at any time." Everyone is silent. Only an idiot would agree to this condition. It's not about finding an ancestor for oneself. And you can leave at any time, so if a large amount of resources are thrown at you and you end up running away, then you can be fed a dog. Bibi Dong was also somewhat speechless about Tang Ge's demands. If Tang Ge made these demands to her, she would definitely not agree. Then everyone looked at Qian Daolu and waited for his reply. After a moment of silence, Qian Daolu spoke up and said, "You also have to agree to one condition with me." "What conditions?" "No matter what happens in the future, you cannot be enemies with the Martial Soul Hall. As long as the Martial Soul Hall does not actively provoke me, I will not be detrimental to the Martial Soul Hall." Okay. It was Tang Ge's turn to be taken aback. He didn't expect Qian Daolu to have such a great deal of momentum. He had just mentioned it and was planning to negotiate next, but he didn't expect Qian Daolu to make a simple request and agree. "It's a deal," Tang Ge quickly said. "Don't waste such a good cheap master. I always keep my word. His Majesty the Pope, my lords, I wonder what kind of martial soul he has awakened. Can you let us see it?" Xiaoyu suddenly spoke up. His gaze was fixed on Tang Ge, who himself was also a genius among geniuses, but he did not have this honor. He let the important figure of the Martial Soul Hall accept him as his disciple. Seeing Tang Ge's proud appearance at this moment, he felt quite unwilling. "That's right, let's take a look. What kind of genius is this?" Yen also said disdainfully. "I knew in my heart that this should be the descendant of some important person, so I let the Pope and the others compete for it. His name is Tang Ge, and the awakened martial soul is." The thousand paths flow suddenly got stuck. Just now, the moon pass only said that it had awakened a divine-level martial soul. As for what martial soul it had awakened, I forgot to ask. He looked awkwardly at Ling and gestured for him to speak. Jin Ji Ji. Tang Ge took the initiative to speak. Another martial soul is hidden, don't say anything. Qian Daolu immediately transmitted the message, afraid that Tang Ge would be exposed. Tang Ge gave a fleeting glance, knowing that the second martial soul could not be exposed. Jin Ji Ji. What kind of martial soul is that? I haven't heard of it before. Isn't this martial soul listed in the top-level martial soul directory? Can it be a mutated martial soul? I think so. But even if it's a mutated martial soul, there's no need for such a big battle, right? Yen sneered, I've never heard of anything about breaking martial souls. Take it out and show it to us. Qian Daolu nodded as he looked at Tang Ge. After all, today's battle has indeed escalated, and it is still in front of everyone. Tang Ge must show some of his strength, otherwise it will surely arouse suspicion from other forces. What he needs to do now is to shape Tang Ge into a genius, slightly better than ordinary geniuses, so that other forces can relax. After all, which family does not have such a genius? Tang Ge naturally understood the meaning of Qian Daolu, and with a thought, Jin Ji Ji slowly floated in front of him. The weapon's martial soul. A stylish armor. Humph, there's only a piece of hand armor, what kind of broken armor? Yen snorted coldly. I want to challenge you. A cold voice came, and it was actually Helena who spoke up. Naivety. Tang Ge shook her head helplessly. He has no interest in the jealousy among these children. Little brat, what are you saying? Yen became angry. Are you childish or problematic? Tang Ge looked at Yen coldly. Yen reflexively took a step back, and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He felt as if he was being stared at by a wild beast. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Lessons for the Golden Generation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Lessons for the Golden Generation. Nonsense, how much older are you than him? He just woke up, Bibi Dong said. After all, in the eyes of others, Hulayina is her own person. Although she also wants Hulayina to teach Tang Ge a lesson, she still has to act as she should. She is the Pope of the Martial Soul Palace. Hulayina didn't understand the meaning behind it. Seeing Bibi Dong still maintaining Tang Ge, she immediately felt very aggrieved and her eyes turned red. Yen became anxious when he saw Hulina's appearance, shouldering the pressure and shouting, then I'll let him have one hand and not a fight. We don't accept it. Why should he just come and directly apprentice? Play one game, play one game. The students from the Martial Soul Academy who were gathered around shouted along, not realizing the seriousness of the matter. They were also curious about Tang Ge as to who could enter the academy and who was not the proud son of heaven. Now Yan's appearance also meets their expectations, and they also want to know what Tang Ge can do. Noisy, let's go together, Tang Ge said lightly. Everyone was taken aback, not expecting Tang Ge to be so arrogant. You should know that the three people in front of him were all star figures from the Martial Soul Academy. Hey kid, that's what you said, Yen said excitedly. Although Tang Ge's words were full of contempt towards them, the thought of teaching this ignorant young man a lesson in the future didn't matter much. Guanling looked at the 1,000 streams. Qiandao Lu remained silent and withdrew from the awakening platform. Seeing this, Bibi Dong and the others also retreated. They also want to see if Tang Ge really has strength or if he is someone who only knows how to talk big. After all, Yen and the three of them are all second-ring soul masters now. Although Tang Ge has an innate level 20 soul power, after all, he does not have a soul ring and soul skills. Yen jumped directly onto the arena and said, Martial Soul, possessed. Flames surged into the sky, and a wave of heat swept through. Behind Yen, a flame giant solidified and appeared. The Flame Lord and Yan merged together, and flames emerged from Yan's body. His hair became even redder, and the flame patterns on his body also spread. Yan looked at Tang Ge and slowly said, "Yan, Martial Soul Flame Lord, Level 28 Second Ring War Soul Master." The students of the Martial Soul Academy looked at Yan with great admiration, as Yan's reputation was built upon his reputation. As for the outsiders, there is only astonishment left. It truly deserves to be a Martial Soul Academy, a place where talents gather. Although Yan is young, he is already a level 28 Soul Master. At this moment, Tang Ge is interested. Yan is the Flame Lord, and his own Jin Ji can also be considered the Jin Ji Lord. Huliena, Martial Soul Demon Fox, level 28 Second Ring War Soul Master. Hulina instantly completed her martial soul possession, and a tail appeared behind her, making her even more charming. She passed by Yan and launched an attack on Tang Ge first. The first soul ring lit up, and the charm was activated, followed by claws grabbing towards Tang Ge's chest. She wants to solve Tang Ge cleanly and decisively, so that Bibi Dong knows who is best suited to become her disciple. Tang Ge sneered, a hint of purple appeared in his eyes, and the purple magic pupils activated. In the crowd, a cold and charming little girl saw Tang Ge's gaze change and was slightly taken aback, then a surprise flashed in her eyes. Buzz. Hulina suffered a direct backlash and felt a piercing pain in her head. Boom. Tang Ge covered his left hand with a golden handle and punched Hulina's belly, knocking her out of the arena. Hulina fell to the ground, coughing up 2 mouthfuls of blood and feeling her stomach churning. Coupled with the pain in her head, she instantly lost her fighting power. Others looked at Hulina and Tang Ge incredulously upon seeing the situation. On the one hand, they were shocked by Tang Ge's strength, and on the other hand, they resented Tang Ge for not understanding how to cherish the beauty of women. Such a beautiful girl would fight if she wanted to. Yan went crazy when he saw this scene. His favorite Nana was knocked down by Tang Ge. Evil Moon appeared next to Hulina in an instant, looking at her injuries with a cautious expression in her eyes. Tang Ge is not simple. Tang Ge, I want you to die, Yan roared. A punch came towards Tang Ge. Boom. Tang Ge raised his left hand and directly grasped Yan's fist. Jin Ji not only allows him to control metal, but also increases his strength significantly. Yan's first soul ring lit up, hell's magma rushes. The temperature rose sharply, and the crimson magma rushed towards Tang Ge. Tang Ge retreated repeatedly, with ghosts and shadows disappearing and his body quickly dodging. Evil Moon, Martial Soul Moon Blade, level 29 Second Ring Soul Master. The figure of Xiaoyu suddenly appeared next to Tang Ge, and the moon blade in her hand slashed directly towards Tang Ge's neck. Tang Ge lifted her body backwards, then grabbed Xiaoyu's arm, controlled the crane and captured the dragon, and threw her over the shoulder to the ground. I don't know when a dagger appeared in my hand. Shwa. The dagger crossed Xiaoyu's neck, then quickly walked around Yan's back and punched him in the waist. Yan felt pain in his lower back, suppressed the discomfort, twisted his body, and threw a punch at Tang Ge. Tang Ge dodged sideways, then a hidden weapon appeared. Shwa shwa shwa. As his left finger shook, the hidden weapon shot towards Yan, leaving a trail of blood on his body in an instant. Yan blocked his hands in front of him, and Tang Ge stepped forward, punching Yan to the ground. The scene fell into silence. Shocked. The 3 people in front of me are the golden generation of the Martial Soul Hall, representing the most potential people in the Martial Soul Hall. They are the leading figures of the younger generation in the Martial Soul Hall. Although they are still young, they are the top figures who dominate the Martial Soul Academy. They are all second-ring soul masters, equipped with top-notch martial souls, invincible at the same level, and can rival the demon characters of Soul Lord. In contrast, Tang Ge is just a newcomer who has just undergone martial soul awakening. Without a soul ring, his soul power is not as good as the 3 evil moons, and he is much younger than them. In their view, anyone who takes action can easily teach Tang Ge to be a good person, so that he knows the price of arrogance. But the reversal was too fast, only a few breaths in total, and some people who were distracted didn't even know what had happened, and the battle ended. Tang Ge first dealt Hu Liena with a punch, then easily caught Yan's attack, and finally dealt with Evil Moon. It seems like the last scene of playing hidden weapons was a bit eye-catching, but it also easily knocked Yan down. Hu Liena, who had just regained her composure at this moment, recalled Tang Ge's indifferent and heartless gaze before, like a person looking at an ant. She felt a wave of fear at the moment. And Xiaoyu was stunned on the ground, holding her neck with her right hand, with shallow blood stains on it. He can be said to have walked on the brink of death. If Tang Ge had thought, he had already died just now. His scalp was tingling, and his eyes were filled with fear. It was so terrifying that he didn't even react and almost died. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. I want to hit 100. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. I want to hit 100. Yan got up and looked at Tang Ge indignantly, as if he was about to burst out with fire. Tang Ge stood with his hands down. You should know that he was also notorious in his past life, and now he's only dealing with a few young children, so he's naturally easy to catch. Qian Daolu on the side looked at Tang Ge with great satisfaction. He was indeed a perverted little guy. He had just awakened his martial soul and had not yet used all his strength when he defeated the Golden Generation in the Martial Soul Hall. However, he also had some doubts in his heart, because he could see that some of Tang Ge's moves were not simple. Could it be that Tang Ge came from a hidden family or had studied under someone else before? But he doesn't care. He believes he can make Tang Ge loyal to the Martial Soul Hall. After all, he is only 6 years old and has strong plasticity. Seeing the strength of his disciple, he couldn't help but ponder, what else could he teach? But Bibi Dong looked at Tang Ge with a melancholic expression. The more powerful Tang Ge was, the more painful her heart became. If she had known this, even if she had sacrificed her life, she would have had to compete with Qian Daolu for this disciple. Gradually, everyone came to their senses, and the square was filled with noisy discussions. This person is so amazing. Is he really just awakened? Definitely, didn't you even see his soul ring? That's the Golden Generation. Woo-woo, my goddess Nana has been beaten. The Martial Soul Academy is going to change. Surprisingly, he won without even using his soul skills. Despicable, you actually used a soul guide, Yan shouted, his voice surpassing other voices. Yeah, it seems like he used a soul guide when he finally dealt with Fu Yan, otherwise how could he control so many flying knives? No wonder it's so powerful. It turns out that a soul guide was used. But when dealing with Hu Liena and Xiaoyu, I didn't use soul guides either. Tang Ge still has strength, said some sober people. Enough, he didn't use his soul guide, Bibidong's majestic voice rang out. Upon hearing this, everyone stopped discussing. After all, even His Majesty the Pope had proven for Tang Ge that he had not used a soul guide. Yan frowned, still not believing that someone had defeated the 3 of them as soon as they woke up without relying on external forces. You should know that it is the Flame Lord who awakens, and he has innate level 10 full soul power. Even so, he does not have the confidence to defeat a second ring soul master when he first awakens. What? Are you dissatisfied? Tang Ge said lightly. Yan tightly clenched his fist, of course not convinced. He didn't say he had been beaten, but most importantly, he lost face in front of Nana. Tang Ge smiled and then looked around with a disdainful gaze at everyone, saying, whoever doesn't agree, you can go up together. I want to fight 100. It's too arrogant. I want to go beat him up. I couldn't help but see that he was facing me with his nostrils. Count me in. Damn him. Brothers, he has just awakened and doesn't have much soul power. Let's go up together so that he knows that the old students in my martial soul academy are not easy to bully," said a slightly older boy. They originally only wanted to watch the play, but Tang Ge's arrogant attitude instantly ignited everyone's emotions. Although Tang Ge defeated the 3 members of the Golden Generation and acknowledged Tang Ge's abnormality, the newborn calf was not afraid of tigers, and they couldn't bear this anger. Dry. Subsequently, one after another, martial souls were summoned out. Guangling and Yueguan, who were standing next to the arena, looked towards Qi and Oliu. The scene was chaotic, and if there was a real fight, Tang Ge might really be injured. The group fight was not as easy to control as a 1-on-1 fight. Bibidong couldn't control it anymore. Anyway, Tang Ge is now a disciple of Qiandao Lu, and she retreated directly to the edge of the square. "Ha ha ha, young people have their own youthful mania, let's fight." Qiandao Lu laughed and then jumped up to give up the venue. Tang Ge stumbled. Why does this sound a bit familiar? With the tacit approval of Qiandao Lu and others, many people couldn't help but summon martial souls one after another. The outsiders who came to participate in the awakening of martial souls quickly pulled their children back, afraid of being affected. And many students from the Martial Soul Academy, who were attracted by the strange phenomena here and kept coming, couldn't help but understand the truth. Not long after, nearly 300 people surrounded Tang Ge in the center, but the highest among them was only the 2nd Ring Soul Master, and the 3rd Ring Soul Lord did not appear. The Martial Soul Academy is different from other places in that it is only divided into junior and senior departments, and both are 6-year programs. However, if you arrive at the 2nd Ring Road, you can advance to the senior department. And the Soul Masters of the 3rd Ring Road are definitely students from the advanced department. They have no face to besiege a 6-year-old child who has just awakened his martial soul, so now they are all targeting the Soul Masters of the 1st and 2nd Ring Road and the Great Soul Masters. Yen glanced at the crowd and his eyes lit up. With so many people together, he was sure to take Tang Ge down this time. He didn't care about whether he won or not, he just wanted to punch Tang Ge in the face. "Brothers, kill!" Yen was already boiling with enthusiasm, shouting and rushing towards Tang Ge first. At this moment, Xiaoyu and Hulaina have not taken any action. The 3 of them besieged Tang Ge just now, which was already embarrassing enough. If they participate in the siege of 100 people again, where will their faces be? They don't have the same thick skin as Yen. Tang Ge twisted his neck and stretched his body. Today, what he needs to do is completely subdue the younger generation of the Martial Soul Hall, so that they know who is the boss. As everyone stepped onto the arena, a series of hidden weapons suspended around Tang Ge and then shot fiercely at those approaching. And under the protection of hidden weapons, Tang Ge walked straight towards the imposing Yen. Yen saw that everyone else was blocked, swallowed his saliva, gritted his teeth and rushed over, activating the 2nd soul skill. Boom! After a few moves, there was no suspense, and Yen was punched into the crowd by Tang Ge. Then he stood quietly in the center, leisurely controlling the hidden weapon to block everyone. At this moment, the 2 suddenly came to Tang Ge's side, a man and a woman, and they launched an attack on the people around them. Tang Ge was taken aback for a moment, but as soon as the 2 of them made a move, he understood that they were from the Tang clan, and judging from their skills, he quickly knew their identities. The reason why the 2 of them could recognize him was also because he did not conceal his skills, and his name was also from a previous life. Therefore, as long as he is a member of the Tang Sect, he can be easily identified as the sect leader. The Martial Soul City is a holy land for soul masters in the world, with the largest number of soul masters in the whole continent. Therefore, Tang Ge also knows that there must be many Tang Sect disciples in the Martial Soul City. When he first arrived here, he needed some confidants to do things for him, so it was not because he was high-profile, but because he deliberately revealed the unique skills of the Tang clan so that the people of the Tang clan could come to him on their own. Well, 2 people have already arrived, and the girl among them is still a Tang Sect elder-level figure. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Phantom Butterfly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Phantom Butterfly. Tang Ge's fingers swayed slightly, controlling 10 hidden weapons, like ghostly shadows, effortlessly solving a person's problem through his travels. Not long after, Tang Ge's soul power almost bottomed out, but he also dealt with 100 people like a devastating blow. This is his first time using the golden stick to control hidden weapon battles. Although he has level 20 soul power, it inevitably causes a lot of soul power waste, so it is consumed quickly. At this moment, there are still about 200 people left to besiege him, but some of them have given up and chose to retreat after seeing Tang Ge's strength. This pervert is indeed not something they can deal with. With the assistance of 2 Tang Sect disciples, there were only over 100 left in an instant. Kang. As the hidden weapon fell to the ground, Tang Ge's soul power had already been depleted. Hurry up, his soul power has run out, Yen shouted again. At this moment, he limped towards Tang Ge, his eyes full of war intent. Tang Ge slowly picked up a dagger from the ground and made a neck-wiping gesture towards Yen. Then, the real battle began. Yen paused for a moment, feeling a chill on his back, and being closely watched by Tang Ge was really uncomfortable. Tang Ge's internal power began to work, and before his martial soul awakened, he was not idle. Moreover, he was practicing the Hunyuan Xiantian Gong, which could only be practiced by past sect leaders. The completed Xiantian skill has 9 layers, while the Hunyuan Xiantian skill has 12 layers, and each layer is more exquisite, and the internal power cultivated is also more powerful. Perhaps it was a recultivation, so he practiced quickly and has now reached the second level, with strength comparable to that of the second ring Soul Master. In addition, with various other unique skills of the Tang clan, and facing a group of inexperienced little brats, is there a problem with 1 enemy and 100? It's just chopping melons and vegetables. Kill, Tang Ge said lightly. Footsteps on ghosts and shadows, the whole person seems to dance gracefully in the crowd, able to knock down 1 person with each attack. Upon seeing this, the 2 members of the Tang clan excitedly followed behind Tang Ge. In the previous life, they were already invincible and had not followed the sect leader to kill enemies like this for a long time. Of course, they still know the right balance and haven't killed anyone. Looking at the stunning performance of the 3, Qian Daolu frowned, because their skills were similar. Are they all from the same profession? Bibi Dong looked at the girl following Tang Ge with a hint of interest in his eyes. When all the dust settled and the rest of the people were eliminated, Tang Ge was a bit panting. He hasn't taken action for a long time, and the enemy is using their martial souls to fight. He's not quite used to this kind of combat style yet. This has resulted in several instances where the clothes on the body have been torn apart and have not even dodged. Rubbing the bruises on his chest, he felt his face turn big. He was fighting with a group of little kids, and surprisingly, he was injured. Surrounding them lay students from the Martial Soul Academy, groaning in pain. Although the attack was not fatal, it also made them uncomfortable. As for the other onlookers, they have become numb. As far as they know, even the most talented person has no strength to fight back against the siege of hundreds of people on the same level. But now Tang Ge has actually achieved it, and in the eyes of outsiders, it is not the same level, but a leap to kill the enemy. Yen has completely fainted. Hulina's gaze at Tang Ge had changed at this moment, and such a perversion was indeed beyond her comparison. Xiaoyu clenched her fist and then reluctantly released it. Looking back on what Tang Ge said before, he is not arrogant, but truly has this strength. Yu Guan looked at Tang Ge with a complicated expression on his face. You should know that a month ago, Tang Ge was in such a disheveled state that he seemed like an ant in front of him. It was because of the appearance of Gu Rong that he was worth taking a little more look at. But he knew that from that moment on, everything had changed. Tang Ge not only possessed extraordinary talent, but also had such amazing combat power. It can be imagined that Qiandaoliu will definitely pour resources from the martial soul hall and vigorously cultivate Tang songs. Maybe in no time, Tang Ge will become the person he looks up to. Qiandao Lu is naturally no longer satisfied with Tang Ge's performance, which has far exceeded his expectations and even cognition. He can become the ceiling of the Douluo world. He has been a demon-like existence since childhood, and his vision is very high. However, at this moment, he has to admit that he was completely inferior to Tang Ge when he was young. Tang Ge, Tang Ge. The square erupted with crazy shouts, and Tang Ge completely conquered the people here with his strength. The two people from the Tang clan next to him looked up at Tang Ge with admiration. He was indeed the sect leader, always shining wherever he went. After cheering for a long time, Bibidong spoke up and said, "All right, the martial soul awakening ceremony continues." People slowly dispersed. After all, there are still many people waiting for the awakening of their martial souls. This ceremony will last for 3 days, and today is only the first day, but it has just consumed a lot of time. Bibidong arrived in front of Tang Ge, and when Qiandao Lu saw this, he quickly blocked the center. Bibidong looked helplessly at the girl from Tangmen and said, "What's your name?" The girl looked at Tang Ge and then said, "Xin. Bibidong nodded and said, "You should awaken your martial soul first." Xinju's combat power had just been witnessed by her. Although she was not as strong as Tang Ge, she was far beyond the average person, much stronger than another person. Most importantly, she had not yet awakened her martial soul. In Bibidong's view, without relying on martial souls, one can defeat the soul masters of the first and second rings solely through skills. Her potential is also enormous, so it is worth her attention. Tang Ge walked down from the arena, and another Tang Sect disciple quickly followed behind him. If I remember correctly, the person next to me should be Mao Yutong, the core disciple of the Tang Sect. Tang Sect disciples who can travel to Douluo Continent with Tang Ge are all Tang Ge's confidants, and he has a clear understanding of everyone's situation. So when Xinju and Mao Yutong stood up and demonstrated Tang Sect's unique skills, he knew who it was. With the initiation of the awakening ceremony, a butterfly appears. It was pitch black all over, and the edges of its wings were blood red, emitting a faint light. Between its wings, it seemed elusive and unreal. "The phantom butterfly of the underworld," murmured Bibidong. "Not bad, it's another top-level martial soul," Qiandao Lu praised. "Test your innate soul power," Bibidong instructed. This time, Moon Guan personally tested it, and with the injection of soul power, the crystal emitted a dazzling light. "Not bad, innate soul power." Yu Guan nodded and said. "In fact, this is also the limit of genius. Top-level martial souls add innate full soul power. If you want to surpass it, then only twin martial souls and innate level 20 soul power are abnormal. But even so, it is not every year that geniuses like Xinju appear. Are you willing to be my disciple?" Bibidong asked. The people around were surprised again, to the surprise that Bibidong had sent out another invitation. Hulina's eyes were filled with grievances, and Bibidong even had the idea of accepting an apprentice. Brothers, PK1 recommendation will start tomorrow. Please help and keep reading every day. Don't raise books anymore. Thank you all. End of this chapter.